Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're located. Welcome to our 2024 Coffee and Conversation series. And if this is your first time joining us, we have a weekly speaker in more of an informal way than the Global Health Summer Institute, where we highlight emerging topics or kind of emerging research from colleagues and collaborators. And so last week we heard from Elizabeth Ayerbe about the prevalence of birth asphyxia, associated factors in intrapartum care practices of midwives in northern Uganda. And today we are happy to be joined by Haijin Kim talking about the lowest low fertility rate in South Korea. And so these conversations are intended to be a bit more informal. So please feel free to use the chat throughout to introduce yourself, to ask questions. If it's a time sensitive question, I'll stop Haijin and we'll try to address it then. Otherwise, we'll plan for some conversation and question and answer at the end of the presentation. So it's my pleasure to introduce Haijin Kim, who is an associate professor in the Department of Nursing at the University of Ulsan in South Korea. She is actually currently at the University of Michigan School of Nursing in Ann Arbor as a visiting scholar working with Dr. Janet Larson, focusing on COPD, metabolic syndrome, and menopause among women. And we've just been filling her in on some fun things to do in Ann Arbor in the summer. But I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Haijin, and we'll have her share her screen and go through her presentation.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, yes, looks good. It's
Hold on. I want to
not
take
on
one
presenter view, though.
I want to take one more. Oh. Okay. Okay.
No, it's good, Haijin.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Michelle. I appreciate the opportunity to present here today and for your generous word. Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Haijin Kim from the Department of Nursing at the University of Ulsan in Korea. I specialized in women's health nursing, teaching courses and supervising hospital practicums for nursing students. My research focuses on women's health nursing. Since February of this year, I have been part of the visiting scholar course at the School of Nursing, University of Michigan. It's an honor to connect with you all through this Zoom session. Today, I want to address South Korea's pressing concern as a remarkably low birth rates. Until the late 20th century, the average Korean family typically had 2 children. However, over the past decade, both birth and marriage rates have plummeted to unprecedented low globally. This prompts us to ask why. So throughout this presentation, we will delve into the current low birth rates in South Korea, explore the associated challenges, and propose potential solutions. Our discussion will be structured around 3 key topics. How serious is the birth issue in Korea? Why aren't young Koreans having children? The need for the paradigm shift in low birth policy. So let's start with the first topic. How serious is the birth issue in Korea? To give you a better understanding, let's watch a recent broadcast from CNN News.
South Korea has beaten its own record in having the world's lowest birth rate. The average number of expected births for women in the country has plunged to 0.72. That was in 2023. And that is far below the 2.1 figure needed to maintain a stable population. And things are feared to be getting worse.
More South Koreans are delaying or even deciding not to have children at all. That's despite the government pouring billions of dollars in an effort to reverse this trend. It's been offering cash subsidies, babysitting services, even support for infertility treatment with few takers. For many, it's not enough to overcome the hurdles to becoming a parent.
이제 애들을 키우기 위해서 그 시간을 따로 빼서 써야 되는 건데 그 시간에 대한 보장이 직장 생활, 사회생활을 하면서 보장되지 않는다는 게 제일 어려운 점이고요. 그래서 그 점을 뭐 나라나 회사와 그 사회 협업을 해서 좀 부모들이 아이들을 위해서 가족을 위해서 시간을 쓰고 좀 이제 다 같이 좀 가정 생활을 잘할 수 있는 그런 기틀을 좀 마련해 줘야 된다고 생각을 합니다.
경적 단절에 따른 재정적인 어려움을 맞이할 수 있어서 그거에 따른 정부의 재정적인 지원이 조금 더 충족된다면 좋을 것 같습니다.
South Koreans cite high child rearing costs, a patriarchal culture, the gender pay gap, and a high competitive society for not wanting to start a family. Seoul is not ready to give up. Back in December, the health ministry vowed to come up with extraordinary measures to mitigate the crisis, though it's made no major announcements so far. But if the forthcoming and existing measures fail to produce results, analysts predict that in 50 years' time, the number of working-age people will be halved, and nearly half the population will be older than 65. South Korea is also the only one of the 37 member states of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development to have a birth rate below 1. The combination of having one of the world's longest life expectancies and a dwindling birth rate has South Korea marked for extreme demographic challenge. Politicians have declared a national emergency. Even more bleak, experts now warn that the East Asian nation may just be the first country in the world to disappear due to population extinction within a millennium if the low birth rate persists.
Yeah, that is really serious problem in Korea. This photo illustrates the evolution of family planning in Korea, highlighting changes in population and population policies. Korean nurses have been deployed to local communities to participate in family planning initiatives both in the past and present. In the aftermath of the Korean War, the young South Korea Republic faced an influx of over 2 million refugees from North Korea and a post-war baby boom with a fertility rate of 5 births per woman. The population was growing at a 3% rate each year, and fear arose about the country's limited land resources. As you know, Korea is really small. As a result, Planned Parenthood Federation of Korea was created in 1961. During the following decades, the federation organized several campaigns to limit procreations. In the 1970s, the government pursued family planning with a focus on having only 2 children, considering even 3 children to be too many. In the 1980s, the government shifted its family planning policy to encourage having only 1 child. However, since 2005, there has been a notable shift in family planning strategies. The government has transitioned toward promoting the idea of having 2 or more children as part of its updated approach to addressing the declining birth rates. So it's not make sense, right? Is this the result of government efforts? After the Korean War, the number of births in Korea sharply declined 3 times. In 1983, in 2001, and in 2019. In 1983, with the implementation of strong government policies to control birth rates, the proliferation of contraceptives, and the normalization of small family sizes, Korea's total fertility rate fell below the replacement level of 2.1 births per woman. This marked the first demographic shift in Korea. In contrast to the OECD average of 1.59 births per woman in 2020, Korea recorded the lowest total fertility rate among OECD member countries at 0.84. By 2023, the average number of expected births for women in the country plunged to 2.72. Through the following graph, you can see that Korea's birth rate was lower than the death rate in 2020. South Korea's fertility decline is unique in three important ways: its speed, its magnitude, and the duration for which fertility has remained at a very low level. After 2030, total population numbers will begin to decline. If this level of extreme low fertility persists and life expectancy continue to improve, people of extreme low fertility, people ages 65 and above could account for 40% of South Korea's total population by 2060, one of the fastest rates of population aging in the world. This process threatens the solvency of medical insurance and pension funds and has serious implications for the economy as a whole. So, why aren't young Koreans having children? The first explanation is that labor market instability and economic downturns have led young people to postpone marriage and the first childbirth or to widen the gap between childbirth, which can be seen as playing an important role in Korea's recent transition to extremely low birth rates. Another important factor that may affect family formation is high housing costs. Due to skyrocketing house values, especially in Seoul and surrounding satellite cities, securing stable housing is a big concern for young adults. These days, Korea has begun to refer to its young people as the M4 세대, a unique term. Since the social issue following the 1997 Asian financial crisis, such as economic downturns and high unemployment rates, young Koreans in their 20s and 30s have started to sacrifice dating, marriage, and childbirth for economic reasons. Through this term, the challenges of employment, rising costs, increasing house prices, and the burden of childcare expenses among young Koreans are highlighted in relation to marriage and childbirth. Secondly, I want to highlight a significant societal shift in South Korea. The decline in family formation and its impact on marriage, extended families, and divorce rates. Societal value, especially among the younger generation, have shifted their traditional family-centered priorities to focus on work and personal fulfillment. This change is driven by value like individual self-realization, freedom from traditional authority, and personal preferences. For example, recent study showed that young Korean adults in their 20s and 30s rank work as their top priority, followed by personal life, partnership, and children. The trend reflects the broader global phenomenon where individual priorities their careers and personal development over starting families. Data from Statistics Korea's reveals a concerning trend. The average age of first marriage is increasing. In 2022, the average age stood at 33.7 years old for men and 31.7 years for women, marking a notable increase from 2012. Additionally, there's a shift in family composition with a rise in one-member household and a decrease in married couple with unmarried children. This indicates a diversification in family life cycle, with many households opting to raise children later in life. Finally, I would like to discuss the decline in birth rates due to gender equality and changing values. With the advancement of gender equality and women's rights in Korea, women now have more educational and job opportunity. However, reducing discrimination against women doesn't mean we have achieved completely equality. Women still face challenges like low employment rates and career interruption due to childcare, allowing that there are still societal hurdles to overcome. A survey conducted in 2020 shed light on the differing perceptions of marriage and childbirth among young people. Women have lower intention to marry and have children compared to men. Blue color is men and pink is women. So this gender gap highlighted a fundamental societal issue. Why do women have a low perception of marriage and children? The analyze on the next slide. The Korean women with the young children faced a significantly low employment rate compared to the G5 average, highlighting the pressing needs for a better support system. The main barrier to employment for Korean women in their 30s is the heavy burden of childcare responsibility. When we compare Korea with the G5 countries, we observed a unique employment trend among Korean women, often described as an M-shaped curve. This pattern shows women leaving the workforce after marriage and childbirth only to return later in unstable positions. This not only widens gender wage gaps, but also intensifies them, emphasizing the necessity for reforms to promote gender equality in the workplace. Given the challenges such as low employment rates and career interruption that Korean women face, it's natural that they might harbour negative views about marriage. So I would like to show about the Korean women's interview. Let's share.
이 한국이란 사회는 혼자서도 각박한데 2인을 어떻게 만들어?
학원에서 날 키웠다. 플래그. 제가 이 현실을 몰랐다면 나왔을 텐데 교육에 있다 보니까 얼만큼 투자해야지 얼만큼 나오는지 알잖아요. 100점인데? 100점인데? 약자가 될 수 없는 밖에 없는 길을 왜 굳이 가겠어요?
껍질 너무 두껍게 깎는 거 아니에요? 노동이 너무 힘들어요. 그러니까 저는 노동을 좋아하거든요. 근데 한국에서는 노동이 어려워요. 이게 거의 쳇바퀴처럼 굴러가는 일상이고 주말에는 진짜 링거 맞고 누워있는 정도로 삶을 유지해야 되는
그러니까 나랑 나까지 힘든 애들 같다고 생각했는데
직장을 그만두는 여성들이 정말 많다? 아이 때문에. 메인 아나운서들도 애를 낳으러 갈 때 직업을 포기하고 가는구나. 그리고 다시 돌아오지 않거든요. 나도 저렇게 아이를 낳으러 갈 때 직장을 포기해야 되는 걸까? 이거 30리터라고.
30리터.
어때?
이걸로 절대 안 돼요. 저 이거 런던 20일 갈 때도 이거의 2배였어요.
이거 뉴질랜드로 가게 된 이유는 뉴질랜드가 성차별 임금이 가장 낮은 여성의 인권이 좀 높은 순위에 들어가다 보니까 한국에서도 살아남았는데 외국 나가서 왜 못 살겠어? 여기보다 더 지옥이 있을까 싶기도 해요. 짠!
front. 조그만 아이들은 너무 귀여워요. 아이들의 귀여운 모습을 보면 낳고 싶다가도 어떻게 교육을 해야 되는지 그거를 이제 가르친 사교육의 입장으로서는 너무 먼 산이다. 진짜 다 맞았네. 와, 웰컴. true, 어딨지? 그렇지. 그러니까 아이들 영수 기본 하잖아요. 영수만 기본 해도 거의 60 나가죠? 돈 얘기 다 해야 돼? 돈 얘기 해야 돼? 발레, 태권도, 운동. Not yet. 아직. 아이를 키운다는 것은 엄마가 전적으로 그 아이한테 헌신해야 되고 사랑을 줘야 되는데 저는 아직까지는 그릇이 부족한가 봐요. 저는 제가 더 좋아요. 만약에 집에서 아이만 본다면 굉장히 우울할 것 같아요. 누구한테 배웠어? 잘했네. 와, 이게 뭐야? 악기?
굉장히 이제 고립된 육아를 하게 됐죠. 쉽지 않았고 도움을 받을 수 있는 곳도 많이 없었고 또 남편은 일이 많은 사람이었고
How much of the childcare and the housework do you do compared to your husband?
제가 한 3-4배는 많이 하는 것 같은데요. 저는 이미 교육 받기를 남녀는 평등하다는 교육을 받고 자란 세대니까 이 현실이 너무 받아들여지지 않고 나도 공부할 만큼 했고 집에서 아이만 키워야 되다니 하는 분노도 갖게 되고.
Do you understand why women now are choosing not to have children?
그러니까 당연히 그 선택을 안 하죠. 자기는 일을 잃게 되고 아이 키우는 거는 오직 자기의 몫이 되는 이 사회 구조 속에서 약자가 될 수 없는 밖에 없는 길을 왜 굳이 가겠어요?
What is the biggest thing that needs to change here in South Korea to make this more appealing for women?
노동시간의 단축인 것 같아요. 한국은 정말 전 세계적으로 막 길게 일하는 나라잖아요. 안 쉬고 길게 일하는 나라. 뭔가 조금 여유를 가질 수 있는 시간이 되는 문화가 일단은 그게 제일 먼저라는 생각이 들고 두 번째는 이 아이를 같이 키울 수 있는 누군가의 도움을 받을 수 있는 제도가 전 너무 필요하다고 생각해요.
I totally agree with the final women's interview. Yeah, because I have 2 kids also. So finally, let's talk about the paradigm shift in low birth policy. To address the low birth rates, multi-phased approach is necessary, including promoting gender equality and supporting work-life balance, investing in social infrastructure, providing economic incentives, and raising awareness about the importance of childbirth. So first, promoting gender equality, encourage policies that challenges patriarchal values and promote gender equality. To understand Korea's low birth rates, we need to rethink the influence of Confucian culture, which emphasized the patriarchal values and filial piety. We must recognize how these affect women's role, the success of pronatalist policies, and the burden of parents. Second, supporting work-life balance. Implement policies like flexible working hours and parental leaves to alleviate the burden of work parents. Third, investing in social infrastructure. Enhance healthcare, education, and childcare facilities to support families. It's crucial to shift towards shared responsibility among businesses, government, institutions, and families, rather than solely burdening women. Economic incentives. Introduce a tax break and financial assistance for families with children to ease the financial burden. education and awareness, promote a campaign about the benefits of having children to shift the societal attitude. Actually, the Korean government's first basic plan for healthy families reflects recent changes in family structures and aimed for diversity, universality, and gender equality. It addressed various aspects, including support for single parents, families, and individual rights. The government launched 5 major packages to support pregnancy, childbirth, and childcare. I would like to briefly explain some policies of this family planning program to you. The first package offers incentive support from pregnancy to early childhood with government subsidies of approximately $240 per month for infants from birth to 1 year old age. Starting in 2022. This infant allowance will be raised in Sarji up to approximately $400 by 2025. First meeting package worth $2,700 is given to families who have given birth. Multi-child support is extended from third child or more to the second child, and discount available on childcare, education, housing, and travel cost. Sounds like a strange discount, but they gave discount. For example, I have 2 children. I received the following discount when I entered museum and art gallery, etc. The first package seeks to establish a comprehensive and high-quality care system people can trust in with confidence, such as expanding public child care and after-school daycare. Final package aims at strengthening work-life balance, such as increasing pay for parental leave and flexibility in working hours and more investment in the well-being of families. But when looking at family policies in our society, we can see the following problems. First, when thinking about family care, the policies don't do enough to reduce the burden of childcare or provide enough social support for family care. Second, for balancing work and family life, there isn't enough support for men's involvement in childcare or opportunities for women's participation in the workforce. Third, when it comes to support for different types of families, we still need to improve the support system for single-parent families. So in conclusion, Korea's very low birth rate served as a poignant reminder of how social values, economic factors, and individual choices interact to shape global health outcomes. By engaging in thoughtful discussion and advocacy, we can work toward creating a more equitable and sustainable future for all. As nursing students, understanding these societal changes and their implication for maternal and child health is crucial. Low birth rate can have broad impacts on healthcare system, economic, and social structures. It's important for us to be aware of these trends as we work to meet the evolving healthcare needs of our global communities. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to talk. I will be happy to answer them. And I'm also grateful to Professor Lee Han for kindly offering to assist with the translation.
Thank you, Haijin. That was wonderful.
Thank you
So
so much.
I see some questions actually coming into the chat already, and then we have a hand raised. And do have some time. So why don't we start with the raised hand and then we'll go into the chat. Rebecca, do you want to just go ahead and unmute and say your question?
Oh, yeah. So first, thank you so much. It was very interesting. I've heard a little bit about this on social media, which obviously has some bias, but I'm curious with your expertise on this, like how much, how much do you think this is due to, like, because what you see on social media is about the 4B movement. So how much do you think is due to the 4B movement versus all the other factors you've seen? Like, and how do you like separate those, like knowing what the cause of it is?
I'm sorry, can you remind us, what is a 4B movement? Is it a 4B?
It might
Is that what you
be-
just said?
Oh, 4B. So the 4 no's, like women not wanting to be married
yeah.
or, have relationships with men. Yeah.
Okay. So your
And
question
I mean,
is,
I'm not from South Korea, so I don't know how prevalent, like, you see it on social media and they make it seem like it's, I have no idea, right? I'm sorry.
no, you're good. So is your question like how much of it is like the factor related to that versus other factors?
Correct.
Okay. 이해하셨어요? 아, 그 네 가지 노 하셨잖아요. 프레젠테이션 할 때 뭐 연애도 포기하고 뭐도 포기하고 그 네 개 중에서 그 네 개 외의 다른 것들의 영향을 얼마나 받는지 아니면은 그 네 가지가 정말 메인 그 이유인지 아이들 안 낳으려고 하는.
그러니까 젊은 세대를 이해하기 위해서 처음에는 3포 세대라고 해서 얘기를 3개, 3포 세대 얘기를 하다가 점점 더 그것 이외에도 많은 것들을 포기한다. because of economic situation. So, 그래서 이게 M포 세대가 된 거거든요. 그 수를 헤아릴 수 없을 정도로 많아진다. 그래서 지금 젊은 세대들이 경제적인 어떤 그런 제약이나 아니면 그런 부분들 때문에 그러니까 자기가 포기한다라고 얘기를 하고 있어요. 안 한다가 아니라 못 한다라고 얘기를 하고 있어요.
Yeah, so she was saying that a lot of it is at the root of it is at the economic component of it. And it used to be like 3 no's, like there were like 3 main things that they would like give up, but now it has changed to like N, signifying that there's like numerous of them, like more than the 3 of like dating and getting married and having kids. There's like so many additional things that people are giving up, and it's not about them like choosing that they don't want to have kids. It really do feel like it's like them, like they don't have a choice because like it costs so much for them to earn a specific wage, and it costs so much to like raise children and like invest in children's like education and like additional like extracurricular stuff that they have to pay for. So at the root of it, it does come down to the economic component. But yeah, that's how she explained it. Does that
Yeah, it
answer
truly
your
is a
question?
financial constraint. I got you. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you both. So I'll read the questions in the chat here, but you should also be able to see them, Haijun.
Sure.
So do you want to go ahead, Han? I can step out of here. A great job.
Sure, no problem. I'll try.
Thank you.
We'll start with the Judith question. Are there any other options for childcare besides the mother doing it? 엄마 외에 아이를 보살펴줄 수 있는 뭐 할아버지 할머니나 뭐 유치원이나 이런 게 얼마나 있는지. 미국은 예를 들어서 누구 뭐 애기 봐주는데 시간당 돈 내고 이런 보험비 같은 분도 있으시니까 그런 옵션이 있는지.
Yeah, we have this kind of, you talk about grandparents and childcare centers. We have this kind of things, but nanny is really expensive in Korea. So for example, if I earn the money, I have to spend all my salary to hire the nannies. It's really expensive. And fortunately, my parents take care of my 2 kids. That's why I can work. So, but if you cannot get any helpful from grandparents, your parents, I think they have to pay a lot. And also child care center is actually free in Korea. The government paid for kids, but it means they can stay in there around 5 or 6 o'clock, but Korea's office, they have to work more, so they have to come. Yeah, they cannot pick up that kind of time, so they have to hire nanny again. So it's kind of a bit difficult for taking care of kids. But yeah, child care center is free in Korea.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And I think that kind of links to Karima's question asking, how many hours per week do childbearing ages women work a week?
childbearing 뭐죠?
한 달에 이렇게 아이 낳는 그 30대 초반 그 아이를 임신하는 그 나이에 평균적으로 여자들이 얼마나 한 일주일에 일을 하는지.
그러니까 임신을 한 상태에서
아니요. 임신을 할 만큼의 할 나이의 여자들이. 그래서 일을 너무 많이 해서 아이를 못 낳을 수 있는 것도 있다고 설명을 했으니까.
Actually, 20 after 30 generation is really high career. 그들 굉장히 일을 잘하는 사람들이에요. 20대를 지나서 30대가 되면.
네.
They can 그 뭐지 승진도 할 수 있고
Yeah, they can
뭔가
promote.
뭐 어떤 되게 중요한 일들을 맡기 때문에 그러한 경력이나 자기의 그런 부분들을 포기하고 싶지 않은 여성들도 있을 것 같아요. 네. 그건 사실 남성들하고 비슷하게 가다가 이제 결혼과 그 부분에서 끊기기 때문에 그게 싫은 여성들도 있는 거죠.
네. Yeah, so she's explaining that, like when women are about to like start getting promoting, getting really established in her career, just like men, it is in their like early 30s, late 20s. And this is the time when they have to like start like getting married if they are married. And when if they decide to have kids, that's when like the biological clock, quote unquote, starts to, decline as well. So like women are oftentimes like at the choice of like, oh, do I continue like my career, getting my promotions and stuff like that, or do I give up and like dedicate my life in like raising children? But to answer your question about like how many hours per week, like I don't know the statistics. 그러니까 한 일주일에 평균적으로 한국 사람이 얼마나 일을 하는지.
40시간이라고 하지만 사실 더 하죠. 네.
Yeah, I mean, I know legally they switched to the law recently with the current president that the full time could be up to 56 hours. And I also have like friends that would work more than 56 hours and they won't still get paid overtime. So it's like very prevalent for people to like get worked 40-hour work hour is very like uncommon. Yeah, people work like 60, 70 hours. Like I have like a lot of friends who work those hours. Yeah. So there's also like hierarchical issues. Like if your boss does not like, clock out, then how dare you clock out? So there's like that type of like cultural stuff as well.
Thank you.
We have this question from Megan asking, how common are multi-generational households in South Korea? Grandparents or aunts, uncles, parents, children sharing housing and helping each other out. 다문화, 한국 원래는 할머니, 할아버지 다 같이 사시는 그런 가족이 되게 많은데 요즘엔 그게 얼마나 흔한지. 그래서 집안일이나 이런 걸 다 나눌 수 있게.
After maybe 1980, many people moved to Seoul, around Seoul. For example, my parents moved to around the Seoul, and then they have to stay themselves, like without parents, without their siblings. So that's why this is really 어떻게 말하면 이게 진짜 큰 이유인 것 같아요. 그러니까 빅가족 뭐라고 해야 되지? 큰 대가족이었다가 핵가족, 스몰 패밀리가 되면서 아이를 케어해줄 사람이 별로 없어서 여자 혼자 더 감당해야 돼서 힘든 것도 있어요.
Yeah, I think like traditionally Korean families used to be very multi-generational, but with the economic growth and like people moving to like Seoul for better jobs and better like college education, the smaller family, the nuclear family became a lot more common, and like that generation gap, it did not happen gradually, it happened very drastically. And Dr. Hae-jin thinks that it's one of the reasons, a very big contributing factor why women all of a sudden feel like they really have no help, because all of a sudden like we are in this like nuclear family, which is very like unprecedented in Korean history.
Thank you.
I have a question, Hae-jin. So you mentioned that obviously the population is aging, right? As there's been a slow and kind of a replacement. And so thinking about care for the older generation is and kind of the loss of maybe this like multi-generational, families living together. Has there been any data or concerns about caring for the aging population? And I know that's a little different than what you were talking about, but how does that look in Korea right now?
그러니까 예전엔 다문화 하면서 부모님이 늙어가고 할머니, 할아버지가 늙어가는 것도 어느 정도 부모님이랑 애들이 케어해줄 수 있는 반면에 이제는 되게 노령, 나이가 많으신 분들이 되게 많아서 그런 분들을 그럼 이제 어떻게 케어해야 되는지 그런 거에 대한 자료도 있는지, 그리고 그런 거에 대해서는 뭐 사회나, 정부가 어떤 대책을 마련하고 있는지.
Yeah, Michelle, that is a really good point. I think a big family, they can take care of each other's like babies or older people, but these days we cannot. That's the problem. 그래서 the government try to 뭐라고 해야 되지? 정책들을 마련하려고 하는데 그게 그렇게 충분하지 않아요. 아직 한국 사회에는 아까 아이들도 엄마가 봐야 되고 뭐 아빠도 인볼브 하지만 그게 되게 약하다고. 그래서 커뮤니티가 잘 형성되고 거버먼트가 움직여야 되는 것처럼 노인들에 대한 어떤 그런 케어도 사실은 그렇게 많이 하지 않아서 가족이 책임을 지는 경우가 많아요. 패밀리 버든이 너무 심해요. 특히 치매 환자들 많아지고 이런 것 때문에 그래서 계속 정부에선 그런 부분들에 대해서 계속 논의하고 있는데 사실 뭐 큰 이렇게 그런 건 없어요.
Yeah. Yeah, so traditionally also like it was like in that multi-generational families that like, the parents and like the younger kids were taking care of the aging grandparents as well. And the government is trying to put out policies and subsidies to like have not nannies, but like aides to provide care for like aging people. But right now it's still very much on the adult children because there's still also a lot of like taboo and it's like very frowned upon to send your parents to nursing home because like family knows best and like it is your duty as children to take care of your parents. So a lot of like young adults are in that like burden that they like feel that burden to like, oh, like I don't think I can have like kids and take care of my kids, but I also have like aging parents to take care of. So they really are like kind of tied in between, and the policies and the recommendations that are being put out by the government is quite insufficient at this point.
Thank you.
And they're also like, this is my thing, but like I recently read an article from The Economist also talking about that, Korean adults 65 and older, like more than 60% of them are like below like poverty line because people like that population is so big and they're not able to get the pension that they were supposed to get. And we have like few younger adults like putting into those like pension as well. So like that is also becoming a huge issue as well, I've heard and I've read. So
there is another question in the chat here.
In the
too.
chat,
Yeah.
Korean people generally prefer that if they are pregnant and give birth to be given incentives such as cash or support to childcare or housing. Do they prefer that if they are pregnant and give birth to be given?
I think they're asking if they prefer cash incentives or more of the services like childcare support or housing.
The government give us like cash or but isn't everyone said it's not enough. So and that is difference. 시마다도 조금씩 지원 금액이 다르거든요. 그래서 우리는 정말 많은 금액을 주기도 해요. 아이가 정말 없는 곳은. 근데 도시는 그렇게 그 정도까지는 주지 못하는 인구에 따라서 달라지는 거.
Yeah, so the type of like incentives and the type of support you get like depends on like which city you live in and like which neighborhood, because like if this city haven't had like, I recently saw news like where the whole city put out a pamphlet because it's like the first child that was born in this city in the most, like the past like 50 whatever years. So like depending on that, like the amount of incentives and the things are different. But a lot of times they give out both. Like it's like if you have kids, like why don't you just get access to everything that you can, including cash and childcare and all that type of stuff. So
사람들은 다 충분하지 않다고 해요. For example, I asked to my friend who has 3 children. She lives in Seoul, and I asked about this because I'm preparing this presentation, and she just get some. I get discount. She got a discount, just $10 per month for electricity bills. That's it, because she earned the money with she works as a nurse, so her salary is high, and her husband also has a business, so they cannot get if that kind of benefit, economic benefit.
Very interesting.
But I have my friends. She's Seungmin Jung, and she study about the lowest birth rate in Korea also. If she can have opinion, could you could you give her the chance?
So you have a colleague that studies this in more detail?
Yeah, I think she knows more than me, I think, about this this kind of
I have a
And
question
she's
about
present in the conversation. She's in the Zoom call.
Does she face
friendly.
any backlash doing this research?
이거 공부하시면서 막 정부나 이런 데서 왜 이런 거 연구하는지 이런 거에 대해서 부정적인 의견을 가지고 있는 것도 있나요? 저출산 이런 거에 대해서 이렇게 너무 대놓고 이렇게 막 말을 하니까 그런 거에 대해서 막 쉬쉬하려고 하는 그런 것도 있지 않나?
그러니까 저출산을 가리려고 한다고요?
네네네. 왜냐면 안 좋은 거잖아요. 이렇게 한국에 대해서 좀 안 좋은 것들고 이런 문제들이 다 계속 나오니까 이런 거에 대해서 연구를 할 때 정부나 이런 데서 지지를 해주는 편인가요? 아니면은 막
이거는 되게 옛날부터 계속 경고했던 얘기들인데 정부가 계속 그거를 무시했죠. 그리고 저출산 대책이라고 마련하는 것들이 크게 효과가 없었던 것 같아요. 그리고 저는 그러니까 이 부분에 대해서 I talk about this issue with my friends or my coworkers, and I thought that is kind of 젊은 generation's perceptionist. I think 젊은 사람들의 그런 생각이나 이런 것들이 너무 달라서 우리랑 저는 그런 부분이 되게 크다고 생각을 해요. 제가 많은 것들을 희생해야 되고 경제적인 어떤 그런 어려움이 있어도 아이는 낳아야 된다고 저는 생각을 하기 때문에 결혼하고 아이를 낳는데 지금의 젊은 세대들은 퍼스널한 것들이 훨씬 중요한 거잖아요. 그런 부분들 가치가 많이 바뀌어서라고 생각을 저는 하는데 제 친구들은 돈 때문이다, 경제적인 이유 때문이다 이렇게 말하는 친구들도 많아요. 그래서 혹시 이 지금 다른 와 있는 그 다른 간호사인 친구가 있는데 박사과정 중인 친구가 있는데 혹시 더 이 친구한테의 의견을 혹시 시간이 되면 물어봐도 되는지 좀.
네네네. She said that, like regarding backlash, like honestly, not much because the government is finally realizing, like the researchers have talked about this for a long time, being like, oh, like our birth rate is like declining. You really need to come up with like a solution. And the government really hasn't been like actively, putting forth like useful like policies. And now I think they're finally realizing how serious this matter is. And now they're like trying to play catch up. And so yeah, that's what she thinks. Like there isn't much of a backlash. It's like everybody like who have been studying this already knew this was coming. But she personally thinks that, yeah, there's all these like economic issues, but she also personally believes that there's also a lot of generational like mindset difference as well. Like the older, like, our generation, we were all a lot like more raised in like multi-generation, like bigger families of like, oh, like we don't really consider a sacrifice. It's just like part of life where you like have kids and like experience motherhood and all that type of stuff. Whereas like younger generations, like, no, it is like personal sacrifice. Like, why do I have to sacrifice like my time and energy and like, all of that to have like children? They're starting to question that type of like assumptions and beliefs. So that's what she personally believes. And this other doctoral student, Seungmin, the nurse, is also studying this as her doctoral dissertation. So if there's any time and opportunity for her to talk a little bit more, we would be more than happy to listen.
Thank you. It seems like there's been a lot of interest in this conversation. So I will follow up with you, Haijin, to get your colleague's name and contact information. And we generally share this recording, and we could maybe even share kind of readings or contact information of your colleague along with that, and then think about inviting her for a future speaking opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
I see another question, I think, from Megan that just came in as well.
Does it change how people think about education?
Um,
Is this like school education, Megan, or is it just like education about like contraceptive and
I think it auto-corrected, actually.
oh,
I was starting
okay.
to type immigration and then I was erasing it in case your colleague actually wanted to make any comments. So I was going to take back my question and give the few minutes to your colleague who's on the call in case she had anything to add to the conversation. So it was an accident that I posted.
Oh yeah, no problem. So maybe we can give a little bit of time for like Seungmin if there's anything that she would like to add now, and then if we have time, maybe we can address Megan's question as well. So 네, 얘기하실 거 있으시면 더 지금 얘기하셔도 돼요.
지금 분위기가 내가 말해도 되는 상황인가? 막 다들 이렇게 빨리 접고 가야 되나 그런 거 생각하고 있었어요.
네, 말씀하셔도 돼요.
Hi. Nice to meet you. It's Seungmin from Seoul. I'm a midwife running birth center and a director of Korean Midwives Association. Other perspectives, Korea has very violent birth culture. Epidural is routine, episiotomy is routine, IV routine, no food allowed. Fundal pressure is routine. That makes women think, no more babies. It's terrible. After birth, they think, no more babies in my life. No. Yeah. So, I think, in medical perspectives, we need to change birth environment. Yeah.
So are you saying that it is very violent because a lot of things are given to women without
Without what?
애를 낳을 때 막 페인 메디케이션 이런 걸 안 준다는 거예요? 아니면은 의견을 물어보지 않고 이렇게 다 한다는 거예요?
중재가 너무 많아요. 중재가 너무 많아서 지금 최근 통계에서 수술률이 61%, 한국의 통계청에서 나온 수술률이 61%고요. 아기 낳고 나면 엄마들이 아기 안 낳고 싶어요. 배 눌러서 낳고 똑바로 NST 때문에 계속 컨티뉴어스 모니터링 하니까 누워 있어야 되고 아기 낳자마자 바로 데려가고 에피조토미 루틴하고 출산 경험이 좋지 않아서 그냥 끔찍하게 생각해요. 더 낳고 싶어하지 않아요.
So she's saying that a lot of like women, like when they give birth, it's very like traumatic for them because like it's not very personalized and their opinions and their like preferences are not often like put into consideration. They have a very like standard way of doing things, like whether it's like giving specific medications or manipulating the baby a specific way and like allowing them to not be on a specific positions. Like it's very standardized. And so it becomes very traumatic to women. And she was sharing that the most recent statistics show like 61% of births are C-section. So yeah, and like we know, like, you know, I think naturally, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's like around like 15%, isn't it? It's like if you consider the complications and all that type of stuff. I'm not a midwife, so correct me if I'm, saying the statistically wrong, but she's saying that like, yeah, in Korea, like the most recent statistics show that 61% births are done by C-section, and she thinks like most of it is because it's like convenient for the physicians rather than like what the woman wants or like what's happening to the woman's body. So after that, they're traumatized and they don't want to give birth any like after that.
Yeah,
So
I
that plays a big role too.
and I teach women's health nursing, focusing on topics related to OBGY to nursing students. Most of my students are young women around 21 or 22 years old, learning about pregnancy and childbirth for the first time from me. And they often hear about the high risk pregnancy and difficult childbirth, which can make them afraid and think of pregnancy as only a medical problem. So I try to correct these fears and misconceptions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I apologize. I didn't realize your colleague was on. So I'm really happy that she had the opportunity to speak. I think last year we had someone from Africa speaking about disrespectful maternity care. And there's a lot of parallels here, right? Where the lack of choice and kind of even like the mistreatment of women can definitely influence their birthing experience as well as their desire to have a future birthing experience. So that is very interesting. Oh, and yeah, Megan says high intervention, no autonomy in the chat here. All right, well, we're closing on time here, but I want to thank everyone for participating. This was an excellent presentation and a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Haejin. Thank you to your colleague Seungmin for joining, and thank you Ha-eun for helping us with translation and making sure that everyone understood one another. I am going to put in the chat the registration for our Coffee and Conversation series. So if you haven't registered for some of our future conversations, next week we'll be talking about comprehensive HIV care, the holistic approach of Clínica de Familia La Romana, and that is a clinic in the Dominican Republic. And then on June 11th, we'll be talking about infertility among Muslim American women and some of the cultural and religious factors that influence their experience of infertility and potentially seeking care. And we'll end with LGBTQ research in Spain. So some exciting speakers to come as well. We will have a recording of this that we'll try to make available for everybody. And then this was an excellent conversation. I think there was a lot of interest. So we'll certainly think about this topic for the future and whether or not it will fit into our future Global Health Summer Institute, where we could have a little bit of a longer discussion and a bigger audience. So thank you again, everybody. I hope everyone has a great day. You're getting some kudos in the chat here as well, Haejin, and some claps. And have a wonderful day or a wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everybody.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.